The movie begins with an 18-year-old boy is in court, as he is of stabbing his violent father to death. After the trial, the judge asks the 12 jury members to give a final verdict to close the case. The judge instructs the jury to provide him with a collective decision on whether they consider the boy guilty or innocent. If the final verdict is guilty, the boy will face the death penalty. Initially, the case seems clear as one of the witnesses provides a straightforward account of the events, claiming that the boy fatally stabbed his father. She claims that she observed the incident from her room's window while attempting to sleep, looking through the windows of an elevated passing train. The train had no passengers, so she was able to look through its windows. The other witness is an old man who resides in the same apartment as the boy, and he claims that he heard the boy threatening his father with death after his father hit him many times. Shortly after the threat, he heard the father's body falling to the ground, and the old man instantly opened the door of his room to find the boy fleeing the building through the stairs. Moreover, the evidence found at the crime scene is a knife with no fingerprints. The boy recently purchased a knife that looks exactly the same, but he claims to be innocent, saying he lost his knife on his way to the cinema that night. It is the hottest day of the year, and almost all jury members take the case lightly, considering the boy guilty. Eventually, the jury members sit in a room to decide a final verdict, all sitting in order from 1 to 12. Juror 1 assumes the leadership role by organizing everything, and then he requests everyone to vote before the discussion starts. Even if one jury member has a reasonable doubt, the verdict can't be finalized according to the law. The voting begins, and 11 consider the boy guilty, except Juror 8, who claims to have a reasonable doubt. Despite facing the anger from his fellows, Juror 8 emphasizes the importance of discussing the case thoroughly as it is a matter of someone's life. During this whole time, Jurors 3, 7, and 10, in particular, are irritated to continue the discussion as they found it unreasonable. Nevertheless, Juror 1, as a responsible leader, allows everyone to speak according to their respective turns and convince Juror 8. On his turn, Juror 3 explains his experience with his son, who broke his jaw and then left him when he was 9, hinting that kids these days have the audacity to fight with their fathers. All of them emphasize the witnesses' stories, but Juror 8 argues that if they can believe the witnesses' stories, why can't they listen to the boy's story? He adds that the boy didn't get to defend himself as his lawyer didn't put much effort. Further, he claims that it is not an exact science that allows them to create stories how they like after listening to merely 2 witnesses. Despite Juror 8's arguments, Juror 4 points to the switchblade knife found at the crime scene as evidence of the boy's guilt. He argues that the knife is a unique and distinct type, and the boy even attempted to wipe his fingerprints from it. However, Juror 8 takes out a similar switchblade knife from his pocket, claiming to have purchased it from a nearby store for only $6 on the same night of the murder. He suggests that the knife could have belonged to anyone, and that the boy may have simply lost it on his way to the cinema. The other jurors are surprised but remain unconvinced of the boy's innocence. As Juror 8 finds himself alone in his position, he requests that the group hold another vote by secret written ballot. He makes it clear that if all other members still consider the boy guilty, he will not stand alone, and they will deliver the final verdict of guilty to the judge. The members vote, and surprisingly, another jury member votes for the boy's innocence, which upsets everyone. Juror 10 yells, asking the name of the juror who changed his side, and Juror 3 lashes out in anger, blaming Juror 4 for voting not guilty. Jurors 3 and 4 are involved in a heated argument, and to their surprise, Juror 9 reveals that he changed his side, not because he thinks the boy is innocent, but because he wants to hear more about the case. While Juror 9 is talking, Juror 7 leaves the room angrily as he has to attend a baseball match, but the discussion is taking too long to end. After this, the members take a short break, and when Juror 8 goes to the restroom, he meets Jurors 6 and 7 there, who try to convince him of the boy's guilt, but he sticks to his decision. Upon resuming the discussion, Juror 8 notices that Jurors 3 and 11 are playing tic-tac-toe on a piece of paper, which annoys him. He grabs the paper and proceeds to point out inconsistencies in the witnesses' stories. He puts together the witnesses' stories and says that, according to the woman, she watched the scene through the windows of a passing train. The train must have created a noisy environment in that area, making it impossible for the other witness to hear the boy threatening his father to death in another room. The evidence must be 100% accurate to consider the accused guilty, but it is not the case here. Fortunately, this makes Juror 8 win the support of Juror 9. Juror 3 again misbehaves, and in response, Juror 6 warns him to act in a civilized manner towards Juror 9 as he is an old man. Then Juror 9 says that the witness, who heard the boy threatening his father to death, could be lying for attention purposes. Perhaps, he just wants his name in the newspaper as he is 75 years old, and no one quotes him. Juror 8 then continues the discussion, pointing out that threatening someone by saying, "I'm gonna kill you," is very common. Everyone, even jury members, uses it daily, but that doesn't mean they actually mean it. Hearing this, Juror 4 changes his vote to not guilty, and now the situation is 9-3. After that, Juror 11 proceeds to express his own doubts about the case. He finds it unclear why the accused would return home 3 hours after his father's murder if he were the culprit. If he intended to remove the fingerprints, he shouldn't have left the knife behind in the first place. If he left the knife at the crime scene in panic, why did it take him so long to return home? 3 hours is sufficient time to watch a full-length movie, and it's possible that the boy really went to the cinema. Further, the woman who witnessed the scene screamed her lungs out before calling the police, so the boy knew somebody had watched him murdering his father. The question is, why would he come back to the crime scene if he had an idea that somebody had watched him stabbing his father? Why would he risk getting caught by the police? To this, Juror 4 argues that the boy might have ignored the scream and returned to remove the evidence, but Juror 8 emphasizes the situation is unclear. This prompts Juror 10 to leave his seat annoyingly and try to disrupt the whole situation. Juror 1 calms him down and requests the members for another vote call. He requests everyone who thinks the boy is innocent to raise their hand, and this time, Juror 11 votes not guilty, making the situation 8-4. This infuriates Juror 7, who finds it absurd that some of the members are ignoring the fact that the old man saw the boy fleeing from the apartment. Suddenly, Jurors 5, 6, and 8 become skeptical of the old man's story, who claim to have watched the boy fleeing the apartment 15 seconds after his father's death. The old man is disabled and drags his foot while walking because he had a stroke last year. He was on his bed when he heard the boy's father falling to the ground. Now it's nearly impossible for the old man to get up from his bed, make his way to the door, unlock it, then walk the whole corridor to reach the stairs, and watch the boy fleeing all within just 15 seconds. Juror 8 instantly shows them a diagram of the apartment, and then demonstrates the whole scene from the old man's perspective. He then asks Juror 2 to start the timer, as he walks like the old man, covering the same distance as he did to reach the stairs. It turns out that Juror 8 takes 41 seconds to reach the door, excluding the distance of the corridor, making it implausible that the old disabled man saw the boy fleeing. As Juror 8 is convincing other members, Juror 3 draws everyone's attention to him, scolding them for believing in the fairy tales that Juror 8 has been creating since the beginning. He says that all should stick to their guilty decision, as the more they listen to Juror 8, the farther they would be away from reality. To this, Juror 8 calls him a sadist, commenting that he has been acting immaturely since the beginning. He adds that he is taking this case personally, making Juror 3 furious, so he tries hitting Juror 8 and threatens him with death. Juror 8 smirks, saying that the same thing might have happened with the boy who only threatened his father with death, but he actually didn't mean it. Juror 3 then becomes embarrassed and stands in a corner. After that, Juror 1 makes another vote call, and they all agree, but this time Jurors 5 and 6 also vote for the boy's innocence, making the jury split in half 6-6. The hot weather causes humidity in the room, making the members sweat, and a storm suddenly approaches the city. After a small break, the jury members sit again, and Juror 10 demands that they take the case to the judge and declare a hung jury, which means the jury can't reach a final decision even after a very long discussion. In response, those who voted not guilty, especially Juror 8, tell him this decision has no logical basis, as they have some reasonable doubts. Juror 8 then addresses Juror 4, who keeps reminding everyone of the boy's illogical story of going to the cinema that night. According to Juror 4, the boy is guilty because he failed to recall the name of the movie or the actors involved in it when asked. Juror 8 clarifies that the boy was investigated in the kitchen of his apartment, where his father's dead body was lying in another room. It is common for anyone to forget the smallest details when emotionally distressed. However, Juror 4 finds this reasoning illogical and questions why the boy revealed the movie's name during the trial if he couldn't remember it earlier. He blames the boy's lawyer for coaching him to lie, stating that anyone can check the records to verify which movie was played that night. The lawyer told him the movie's name, and the boy revealed it during his trial. In response, Juror 8 decides to test Juror 4's memory by asking him questions about specific nights before that day, and as expected, Juror 4 fails to answer them. Then, Juror 2 voices his skepticism about the case, specifically the angle at which the boy's father was stabbed and the resulting wound in his chest. He argues that it would have been difficult for the boy, who was significantly shorter than his father, to stab him downwards in the chest. To contradict his point, Juror 3 takes the knife, and shows the group the angle at which the boy could have stabbed his father, once again advocating for a guilty verdict. However, Juror 5 intervenes and makes an exceptionally different discovery about the case, claiming that the knife used wasn't an ordinary knife, but a switchblade knife, which is always used upwards if the user is experienced. Considering the boy who lived his entire life in a slum, had a violent childhood, and committed many small crimes, he seems to be experienced in using these kinds of weapons. However, Juror 5 argues that the wound in the father's chest was created by a downward stab, which means that the real culprit could have been someone inexperienced with using a switchblade knife. Therefore, the boy may not have stabbed his father, and someone else may have committed the crime. Seeing the situation turning towards the boy's favor, Juror 7 switches his side, saying that he also votes for the boy's innocence, which infuriates Juror 3. Juror 11 supports Juror 3, as no jury member has the right to change his vote just because the discussion is taking too long, so he instructs Juror 7 to vote guilty, or not guilty only when he is really convinced. In the next vote call, 9 out of 12 members vote not guilty, and Jurors 3, 4, and 10 still conclude that the boy is guilty. Juror 10 begins his protest by yelling at all other members, calling the boy a liar and a dangerous threat to society. However, no one takes him seriously, as his remarks lack logical reasoning. Juror 8 then asks Juror 4 why he is so sure the boy is guilty, as he is the only member acting civilized during the entire discussion while being on the opposite side. Now Juror 4 reminds everyone of the woman's story, who saw the boy stab his father downwards his chest through the windows of an elevated passing train. That time, she was tossing and turning, unable to sleep, but she had a good look at the boy in the act of stabbing his father. Juror 4's arguments make a strong comeback in the case against the boy's favor, and Juror 11 switches his vote again to guilty. In the middle of the discussion, Juror 4 removes his glasses and rubs his nose because of the marks created by his glasses. This draws Juror 9's attention to a significantly crucial, but ignored detail about the woman's story of seeing the boy stabbing his father. Juror 9 says that when the woman appeared during the trial, she had the same marks on her nose due to wearing glasses. However, she didn't wear glasses and did an exceptionally good job trying to hide those marks with heavy makeup, but she kept rubbing her nose, which suggests that her eyesight is weak. Now, keeping in view her story that when she saw the boy stabbing his father, she was trying to sleep, and nobody wears glasses while going to bed. If she didn't wear the glasses, how could she identify the person 60 feet away at night, even through the windows of a passing train? She certainly saw the boy's father being stabbed, but she couldn't identify the face without wearing glasses from such a great distance. Juror 4 is finally convinced that the boy isn't guilty, provided that the discussion keeps disclosing the hidden details. The situation is not 11-1, making Juror 3 alone stick to his decision that the boy is guilty. Juror 3 gets irritated seeing his ego being hurt and thinks that everyone in this room, except him, is an idiot to turn and twist the story according to their liking. He throws his wallet out of his pocket, and a picture of him with his son falls on the ground. It is revealed that Juror 3 wanted the boy to be considered guilty because he wished to see a teenager executed for standing up against his father. He bursts into tears remembering how his son left him after breaking his jaw, and then he finally changes his vote to not guilty. The final verdict of not guilty is given to the judge, and all jury members leave the room except Juror 3 and 8, who gives Juror 3's coat to him, hinting that he has no personal grudges against him. The movie ends with Jurors 8 and 9 shaking hands and revealing their names to each other as Davis and McCardle, respectively.